Live, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Finally live yet again. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good to be back. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. We're one day closer to these playoffs from kicking off. It felt like these 10 days in between each round it's a slog. I understand why they do it and why they're trying to give these guys a little bit of rest in between. But, dude, as I say every time, I'm excited. We're one day closer to real football.
I thought bowl games didn't matter.
Some of them don't.
I'm
joking. Well, actually, yeah. I'm not joking. Like that Toledo Pitt game. I couldn't even tell you what that bowl game was. That one doesn't matter. The Pop Tarts Bowl, that was fun to watch.
You know what games I'm talking about. The games that, like, hey, man, what does Iowa look like going into next season? I mean, they showed a lot of fight today. What does Missouri look like? Eli Drinkowitz, back-to-back seasons with 10 wins. We were talking about that coming on. You thought it was a little underwhelming. I'm just like, hey, man, you went 10 games at Missouri back-to-back seasons. I think it's an accomplishment regardless. But obviously I'm trying to hint at the Cam Ward fiasco that everybody started freaking out about that we'll talk about here tonight. And that Cam Ward sat in the second half of the game with Miami and Iowa State. And a lot of people seem to have a lot of issues with this one, Joe.
I'll save my true thoughts on this. But I don't understand why people are calling him out for quitting. Because we have this belief that the games don't really matter, and we're constantly crapping all over these athletes for their participation, non-participation, whatever it is. He goes out there, he breaks a record, and we're holding that against him for not finishing the game after we saw what happened with Carson Beck. I'm going to save the full thought on this, but I'm not for people calling him a quitter, man. Emory Williams got to play, and you got some film on Emory Williams. Was that the end of the world for Miami that was the outcome?
What is it? He went for a record.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. This dude literally carried them to 10 wins. Literally. Right? Literally carried them to 10 wins.
Yeah.
And I got to be real with you. Miami fans, what do you want him to go back in there for? So you can get 11 wins? How about this? Your entire defense is back. Make a stop against one of the worst rushing attacks in the country. How about that?
Right. And
Joe, they can't do it.
Well, he built him a lead too. It's like, what else more could the kid do?
I don't know. Look, I am fascinated. For example, I saw that Coach JB went viral. Hey, bud.
What side was he on?
Oh, he hated it.
Of course, the coach hates it.
No, well, first off, let's just be understood. My man got fired, okay, at a JUCO. This isn't the same. You've never had a kid, and the one time that you did, you went to the NFL draft with him. You've never had a quarterback that's going to go top 3. Joe, the worst, there's nothing humanly possible that could have gone great for Cam Ward. Nothing. Legacy, no. You're gonna get hurt over legacy. Yeah, screw that. Screw you. Okay. But there is another quarterback that made some news today. We'll talk about this too. Klubnik for Clemson is coming back, Joe.
Yes. Not unexpected. We knew that this was coming. We knew that Klubnik was going to be going back to Clemson, but I wanted to, and the timing was good. I wanted to talk about what this means for this Clemson team because they've got some good receivers, some young kids that were really, really stepping up and having good performances, and especially in the Texas game. So there's a nice ceiling for Clemson next year if Klubnik takes the step forward that many people are hoping for.
Did it against 2 really damn good defenses in the last 2 games that he played, or last 3 games that he played, if you want to throw SMU's front 7 in there, which I think that you could say is pretty damn good. He did it against Texas. He did it against SMU. He did it against South Carolina, that I thought was arguably the second-best defense in the SEC this year. Me and you had a lot of discussions about South Carolina as the year went on. He literally would carry them. So you have a quarterback now, Joe, that's coming back with 42 touchdowns, total touchdowns on the season, with only 6 interceptions and 2 fumbles. So, I mean, what is the next step for him? Question that I start asking is, does he have the weapons on the outside? They did go in the portal and get a receiver. I can't believe we'll even mention that. But their O-line, man, I think it's going to be an interesting thing to talk about Clemson. But Clark coming back is a very, very massive deal. We'll talk about that as well. Texas A&M, we'll talk about the portal, and we'll talk about Texas A&M going into the transfer portal, how they've been doing it. Wide receiver room they've been able to pull.
Nuts.
That's really good. So we'll talk about that as well. And then we'll get to game picks. We'll spend half of the show probably here getting to our game picks of these 4 playoff games. And I'm assuming we're probably only going to have one big difference in these game picks for the playoffs.
Yes, we do actually. Now I was thinking off the top of my head, there's only one game that you and I differ on, and I think our listeners could probably guess which game that is. Hint, hint, it is the Sugar Bowl. We'll extrapolate. We'll dig a little bit deeper on that. I dug away at the lead that you have, by the way, because I went 4-0. No, I went 4-0. You went 3-1 last week.
Okay, so now I got a 12-game lead instead of a 13-game lead?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, it is what it is. All right, let's get to it here. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell. My good man, we're going to be going over 13,000 here soon. So if you haven't done so, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Wherever you listen to podcasts, do us a favor by rate, reviewing, and subscribing. Joe, let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. When we come back, we're going to break down the Cam Ward, Klubnik news. We'll talk about A&M, and then we'll get to our game picks here. So everybody, do us a favor during the break. Hit that like and share. We greatly appreciate it. We're back next. Stay with us. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. Speaking of quarterbacks, Marcus Freeman put to rest pretty quickly the rumors of Quinn Ewers potentially hitting the portal and heading over to Notre Dame.
Okay, you and I texted about this. He has said, not only from where I texted with people, that like was quickly unsubstantiated. Colin Cowherd doesn't have any sourcing with Notre Dame football. He has been a USC football glazer, a Lincoln Riley glazer. He's got nothing positive to say about Notre Dame. Meaningless. But the other part about this, Marcus Freeman has said a lot of times, that they're done doing the whole portal thing, that they're trying to develop guys in-house and move in that direction at quarterback. So you're right. He did make a statement this week, but that has kind of been his goal for a period of time now. And I don't blame him. They don't need Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers is not what they need at quarterback, which is what the rumor was.
I understand the Notre Dame side of things, and that very well may be true from the Notre Dame side of things. This originated from Texas, and there is one thing I will give Cowherd on this. When it comes to a guy like Sark, when it comes to a guy like Lincoln, when it comes to Pete Carroll, and when it comes to former USC head coaches, Colin does have a very good connection with those head coaches. I am interested in knowing the relationship that Sark had with Cowherd, of where this technically originated from, Joe, and they've both openly been like Sark's the only SEC guy that goes on with Cowherd during the regular season. So there does come a path where I'm like, Cowherd's not going to be loose with things that came out. So I asked some Texas people, and they were very much prepared, or they are very much prepared for him to hit the portal, because this is going to be Arch's show come next year.
Yeah.
So whether he goes in the draft, he goes to the portal, I think that's where it came from. I don't think it's completely false, but we'll have to wait and see.
Him going in the portal is a possibility. It's just him ending up at Notre Dame, I don't think is happen. Did
Cowherd say Notre Dame, or did he say they would be one of the? Because that's not what I heard.
In the clip, so the clip that he said, he was extremely vague about it, but like there have
He
been
said some Midwest schools were interested. He never came out and said Notre Dame for what it's worth.
He didn't, but there have been. He knew what he was doing because it was a burner account rumor that was getting pushed around over the past couple of weeks that most people didn't take seriously, and then the Notre Dame folks, just Notre Dame fans and Notre Dame fan accounts, kept resharing that clip, saying like it really sounds like he's talking about Notre Dame and Quinn Ewers because of the goofy rumors that were going around. That's kind of where I'm coming from here, is that he didn't directly say it, but he was trying to insinuate it to cover his ass because he knew that there was a chance that it didn't come to fruition.
It's gonna be funny when the kid hits the portal, because I don't think
he'll get the portal. He might hit the portal. I don't think he goes to ND.
I don't think he goes to any SEC school.
Maybe he goes to USC.
So the point being, right, would be that the only real tier of place that he could go would be the Midwest. If he's going
Michigan,
to a
USC,
more top tier school. So again, we'll have to wait and see. Speaking of quarterbacks, we're going to talk about quarterbacks for the last 12 minutes here. But Joe, let's start off with this. So the Cam Ward played in the Pop Tart Bowl in the first half, breaks a record, then comes back. The most touchdowns in a career, whatever it was, or most passing touchdowns, whatever it is. Dylan Gabriel's 3 away, by the way. So if Dylan Gabriel has 3, he's gonna break the record. That's neither here nor there. But then after he breaks the record, he sits the second half. What's in spawned a lot of Miami fans who have really come after me over the last year in reference to how bad their defense has been. And newsflash, we were right on that. But Cam Ward taking a lot of heat about quote unquote quitting the game and sitting in the second half. Now, let me go ahead and say this. I have been very calm seeing this on social media the last couple of days. We've still been doing holiday stuff, whatever. I cannot emphasize enough how dumb I think it is that you're calling a kid a quitter when most of you go out here and do content and call bowl games meaningless. How dare you? And this kid's going to be a top 3 pick potentially. There is no way as a head coach, none, that I would go out there and tell this kid to play. None. He shouldn't have even played. Let's call it what it is. I mean, there's a lot to risk here. Joe, what's the signing bonus? $15 million for a top 3 pick?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm sure it's in that ballpark.
Okay, so what are we doing here? Because you want Mario to get to 11 wins? Well, then how about you make a stop defensively at all this year? At all. Stop Kyle McCord. Cam Ward has absolutely nothing to give to Miami. He gave it already to you.
It's not just Miami fans, though.
You're right.
There are a lot of people weighing in on this, calling the kid a quitter. And I know that people are trying to pull it into like, oh, it's the game of football. You can't quit on your team in the middle of it. But we literally saw a few weeks ago in the SEC championship game, in a meaningful football game, in a circumstance where Carson Beck throws a Hail Mary that they didn't need to attempt and tears a tendon in his elbow. A meaningless singular play that didn't need to happen that cost his availability for the playoff. And I know Georgia fans might say that good or bad thing.
Career.
Well, and it might negatively impact his recovery for his entire career because it is a serious, serious injury and it is not a perfect recovery process. We see pitchers come back all the time with these ligament issues and they never throw the same. His draft stock also could be seriously impacted and will be seriously impacted by this. Cam Ward didn't even have to play the first half. You guys should be happy and excited that he went out there and he broke the record. And a Miami Hurricane gets to say he broke it, currently owns the record, which you mentioned Dylan Gabriel might end up reclaiming it. Just because he started the game and didn't finish it. A lot of people were stating, Blake, that, well, if you're going to only play half of it, you should just not play at all. Bullshit. He wanted to go out there and play with his team one more time. He wanted to try and go for this record to be able to accomplish that, not just for himself, I would assume, but for his entire team. And then for him to sit out means nothing in this circumstance. It's a freaking bowl game where there's mascots that are Pop Tarts roaming around and hanging from the video board. Are we serious? Like, all of a sudden we have to take that game super seriously, and it's the most absurd thing that happens in the month of December in college football? It's like a fever dream, and we're giving him shit for not finishing that game? Like, what are we doing?
Well, here's my thing, though. There's a verb issue with how people are defining bowl games. I don't think they're meaningless. I do think that they're important to see certain things about a team. Like, for example, today, Iowa, you're turning a lot of people offensively. What does that mean for you going into next year? Winning and losing that game today meant absolutely nothing to me. There's a different circumstance for different people. A completely different circumstance for a guy that is maybe a sophomore, redshirted junior who hasn't cracked the lineup yet and gets to play versus a top 3 pick. So I think that there is some verb issues going on here. What do you mean he's a quitter? What, like, quit what exactly? The only reason he's playing is to break a record that he wanted to accomplish. Everybody's there to accomplish something anyway. I mean, we don't say anything about the coaches that leave Miami or leave a school. By the way, just throwing this out there, if a coach leaves a school, okay, we don't call them a quitter. By the way, in their contract, if you win a bowl game, they get paid that money. It's not like that they don't get paid for not even coaching, I might add you. So you better understand that those things are still there. Quit what? Like, what did he quit? His team? What team? He's not the only one that opted out. I can't believe that he played at all. There's no way that I would let him play. None. It is idiotic. So you're mad that he quit at halftime? What's the difference in him going and playing in the game and breaking the record and leaving the game versus people quitting that aren't even first-round picks? Joe, there are kids all across the country that have opted out that aren't even going to be first-round picks.
Yeah. No, not that aren't even close to the stratosphere of the discussion of being a top 5 pick, let alone in the mix for the first overall pick. All I'm saying, and the angle that I haven't really seen
if
anyone
this were a
bring up,
playoff game, it would be obviously completely different.
What if
because you're trying to win a championship? That's not the same.
Everyone wants to bring up and use the word quitter and say that he quit on his team, but Blake, what if he did go out there and suffered a significant injury? Like, seriously, we want to be all freaking
Smith.
Exactly. We want to be all serious about this. So let's take the serious angle. If he goes out there and he's done and he can't do any prep for his pro day, the combine, can't do any of that stuff because he's recovering from an ankle injury or a knee injury or whatever it was, and is unavailable for the start of his rookie season, it would have been hugely detrimental. He would have lost out on a ton of money. It would have screwed him. It's just, it is a ridiculous argument. I can't believe that it is something that was, so when I tweeted about it, I was so stunned by the visceral reaction. It's not even like it kind of sucks that he sat out, blah, blah, blah.
It's the vocal minority of people that don't like NIL, don't like where college football is going. Yep. Newsflash to every single one of you. Joe, at random, name a team in the playoff right now. Name them. Georgia. Okay. They're probably the least one. And what I'm about to say, they went out and their lead receiver is from the portal. Their lead tight end is from the portal. Their running back is from the portal. They just won the SEC from it. So why do I mention that? I mention that because we talk about all these people that literally go out there and they're mad because the portal exists and NIL exists. But ain't nobody at Georgia going to be talking about getting ATN back. Nobody.
No.
Same's going to be happening for SMU. Same would happen for any other team around the country. This kid owes them nothing. He owes college football nothing. I'm shocked he played the game, if I'm being honest with you. And good on Iowa State. Good on them. But it flabbergasts me. It really does. It flabbergasts me in the sense of that you had a kid that just broke a record of most touchdowns in college football, most passing touchdowns in college football. Why would Joe? That should tell you the character of the kid and how much of a competitor he is. If the first thing I thought when he went out there and he started slinging it around, I'm like, I literally, Ben was sitting right next to me, my son. I'm like, that is a competitor. Because he could have just said, you know what, man, Dylan Gabriel's going to break this record literally in a couple of days. Why am I even risking it? So, I mean, the simple fact that he went out there and wanted to be on the top and the pinnacle showed me how much of a competitor he is.
Yeah, he could have very easily have just ended up in San Diego and started his training week.
He should have been there.
Yeah. He didn't have to stay with his team.
You got Cole Kublik on the sidelines in a Pop Tart mascot outfit.
Right. It plays to the degree of absurdity with the entire situation. And as someone who I'm going to end up covering this draft cycle, I really do not want to hear anyone put in a sentence, he is a quitter for sitting out the Pop Tarts Bowl. That is a ridiculous string of words to put together. You can't finish that sentence with Pop Tarts Bowl and take it seriously. I'm done talking about it. It is so nauseating that some people can attack kids like this for quitting.
Idiotic. Speaking of quarterbacks, let's move on to this then. Cade Klubnik, the Clemson quarterback, has announced today, Joe, that he is going to be returning for the 2025 season. You were talking about you covering the draft, and you had mentioned to me, because I'm not really a big NFL guy, really. Not at least not draft guy, really. You had told me that people really had thought that there was a chance that Cade Klubnik was going to go into the draft. Nevertheless, he announced that he's coming back to Clemson for his final season. I guess your instant reaction to Cade Klubnik returning to Clemson for 25.
Yeah, I've always been a little negative on Clemson when we've talked about him on this show, but anyone who listened to our reaction to Texas and Clemson, that matchup in the first round of the CFP, we were both really impressed by the way that Klubnik played. He has shown us a lot of really good things and a lot of development over this final stretch of the year. We knew, and all we heard about was when he was coming out of high school, former 5-star, former number 1 quarterback in his class, that he had the goods to be a future first overall pick. He's just not there yet. And next season in 2025, you don't think he's a
first round pick right now?
Not in this, if he declared right now, which was what the decision was, if he was going to go back to school or if he was going to be a part of the 2025 NFL draft, he probably would not have been a first round pick. His decision to return gives him one more year of development. And if we saw this rapid rate of progression and improvement from him with this upcoming year to have those freshman young receivers that made the big, huge plays that they did in this late stretch of the season, for us to see that and to know that we get one more year, it's going to be huge for his draft stock. But more importantly, I alluded to this previously on a previous show, Clemson should be one of the leading favorites to win the ACC. They should. Having experience at quarterback and assuming that they can, deal with some of the roster holes that they have, and there's some development of these high school guys that they have that haven't come up yet from some good recruiting classes that they had 2-3 years ago, they should be leading that discussion of winning the ACC, because across the board, it's a lot of teams that have a lot of question marks that lost a lot of guys to the portal or are starting over with brand new head coaches.
Cade Klubnik had 42 total touchdowns and 8 total turnovers this year. The kid was a TD machine. I mean, let's look at the last 3 games. Some very good front sevens, South Carolina, SMU, and Texas. I mean, he threw for 336 against Texas, and he had 3 passing touchdowns. He did have the pick. Threw 4 against SMU. He had the 2 big rushing touchdowns against South Carolina, who, Joe, you and I thought probably had the best duo at edge in the country with Stewart and Kennard. I look at him and say, look, there's so much growth. The problem, I don't want to say it's a problem. The question that I have with Clemson going into next year, you couldn't stop anybody from running the football on you. And if Klubnik is going to be, and if Clemson is going to be something special, he's going to have to take that next step. But here's the thing. When I look at Klubnik, Joe, every single year, he's taken a leap in reference to what he's done in certain areas. He had more yards this year. He had more touchdowns, clearly. The turnovers cut literally in half from where they did a year ago. So I look at him and say, look, man, you have a junior quarterback that's coming back. when you have that kind of dude behind as your signal caller, good things can happen for you. The question ultimately becomes, what does he have around him, and can those weapons help him? Because defensively, I don't know. I don't see the feeling in the roster where you're going to be better in certain areas. So I look at Clemson. They would have you would feel like that they will have a lot coming back. It's just going to be interesting to see. This will be year 3 going into a system with Riley, Garrett Riley. Considering, Joe, he took such a massive leap from yardage and turnovers, I do wonder what happens with him in year 3 with Riley. I thought they were a lot more prolific this year. And, man, look, Texas is not a slouch defensively. So they were able to do some really good things. And, Joe, quite honestly, he made the throws that were able to lead them to keeping that game close.
Right. He's certainly not perfect because there were still areas where, you see late game mistakes or mistakes in crucial situations against South Carolina. Wasn't perfect against Texas, but a lot of the reason for their comeback wasn't just from their receivers, Clemson's receivers making big plays. It was him making the right decisions. It's the flashes that you see for a guy that in his second season, starting his third year with Garrett Riley calling the plays, where that promise is. A lot of times, and one of the things that and I'm going to bring this up the entirety of the offseason, a lot of the things that we love to talk about on, hey, this team could win a national championship. Hey, this team should win their conference. One of the things that we bring up is multi-year starting quarterbacks returning with the same offensive or defensive coordinators and head coach, all of that marriage returning to a team. So to have that chemistry that is growing and improving and getting better every single year, to have that and to see the progression, it's not like it's been a slight progression. There has been pretty big jumps over periods of time with a couple of lows that were disappointing, like when they lost to Louisville. The underperformance, certainly the way that they finished last year was at least positive. Him and Riley coming back, I think, is really big for this Clemson team. I'm excited to dive into the roster when we do like the full off-season evaluation on them, which we probably won't do until May or June. But there's a lot to look forward to if you're a Clemson fan.
I can't go there because I mean, listen, man, everybody ran on you. So
that's why they went after and got Will Helt, and I would hope that their D-line.
Will Helt ain't gonna help the interior of that D-line. Sorry, ain't gonna happen. So we'll see. I mean, they got, if Woods comes back, they got Sammy Brown in that, the kid, the middle linebacker. Yep. Kid's really good, man. He can run sideline to sideline. So we'll see. But dude's gonna have to go off. And look, they got a tough game in LSU in week 1. LSU hadn't won a game in week 1 in 5 years since Joe Burrow's been there. So, I mean, we'll have to ultimately wait and see and find out here. Okay. Joe, last thing before we get to game picks, the Texas A&M Aggies have been really doing good in the transfer portal, getting a lot of really high-quality players, a couple of former 5-stars. When you look at Texas A&M and what they've been able to do in the transfer portal, what have been your thoughts on the guys that they've been able to bring in?
Well, the biggest catalyst for us having this conversation is the commitment that they received from Casey Concepcion, who burst onto the scene as a true freshman at NC State and had a good season this past year, but a bit of an underperformance for hope that he was going to take a huge step forward because NC State was underwhelming overall offensively this year. Not a lot of consistency at quarterback. Concepcion has the goods, though. He has the goods to be one of the leading receivers in the SEC this year. He has the goods to be a top receiver in the 2025 NFL draft if he chose to declare. But overall, I am obsessed with how this receiver room looks. That Concepcion and Micah Hudson, who has a lot of talent that a lot of people have tried to poo-poo on, is still a gifted young player that can be really productive going into his sophomore season. And the last part about all this, with this completely new look offense, we know that they're going to be fine on defense, assuming that their secondary plays better. That's a whole separate issue. Marcel Reed has been getting crapped on a lot for some reason. And I don't get it. That young man was so hugely impactful for a young player in a number of important games this year. I think that the ceiling is quite high for Texas A&M, knowing that they have all these weapons.
I'm interested to find about A&M because I'm interested about them in reference to, man, that's not the style that Mike Elko wants to play. Right? Like you're going to get in Casey Concepcion, you're going to get in Hudson. And Joe, arguably one of the biggest sleeper receivers that they went and got was the Craver kid from Mississippi State who had some massive plays for Mississippi State a year ago. My thing is are you going to throw the ball around like that? Like, I mean, maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know that. But what I do know is that, look, if Micah Hudson can live up to his talent, if you know what Concepcion can give you, and along with Mario Craver and other pieces that they already have on that roster, it's a really good haul. My question, though, is are you, when it's crunch time and you're playing in a big game, are you going to throw it around like that? Well, they did against USC, but they kind of had to do that. Against USC, it was very prevalent that they needed receivers and they needed bodies and they needed some guys. So I think that's a big haul there for them. It's going to be interesting to see what it looks like with Marcel Reed going into year 2 as now they're going to be full-time starter here. I know they bring in the kid from UAB. This is Marcel Reed's team, in my humble opinion. Joe, I think the sky's the limit. They got to. Here's the thing now with A&M that's really interesting for me offensively. What are you going to guard against? Are you going to stack the box with Ruben Owen? Are you going to stack the box with Marcel Reed? Now you can't play one-on-one, man-to-man against them. You're going to have to be. Your D-line, your front. They're going to make you choose what you want to take away. So if Marcel Reed can be better as a passer going into really a year 1 for him as a starter, or continuing that year 1 as a starter, they're going to make you dictate it. So I do think that they present a lot of very dangerous things for you offensively. That would be the thing that I'm most interested and intrigued, because Ruben Owens will be back. You know, I mean, like, what happens with Le'Veon Moss? Can he be back or give you something during the season? So a lot of questions are going to be arisen by Texas A&M.
I think that was just overall like the biggest part about those, and to track it back to Marcel Reed, is what kind of a step does he take next year? And you also mentioned Klein, who is the offensive coordinator. We don't know what he's going to be able to do with all this receiver talent. I'm not saying that as a negative. It's he didn't have this to work with when he was leading that Kansas State team and was having the degree of production that they were having. We don't know what he could end up cooking up. Ultimately, what's going to lead to success for Texas A&M, though, this coming year, I mean, Elko freaking talked about it when they lost to USC. They got to cover. Bringing in Julian Humphrey is big. Can you crack into that potential that he has as a player coming from Georgia? But man, they need better production and quality of play from their corners, because that was a disaster at times this year.
Well, Ricks will be back, and I do think that you're right that they've been bad, and Elko called them out for not being able to run zone. But here's the thing. I'm not letting Elko off the hook on that. Stop calling zone then. You're the one that's calling it. So you go out there and you complain about the kids not being able to understand zone coverage, then stop calling zone coverage.
Well, philosophically, though, if you don't have good corners, you kind of have to call zone. It's like if you don't have the guys that can run man to man,
they don't understand what he's trying to run.
They're going to get cooked either way.
but the problem is he's complaining that they don't know how to do what he's trying to call and run what he's trying to call. You didn't say that shit against LSU. You didn't say that shit against Missouri. No, what happened is when you went out there against South Carolina and they're 1-4 and they're 1-3 in their last month, or 1-3 or 1-4 in their last 5 games.
Is that right?
Yeah, the only win that they have is against New Mexico State. November, they took a massive deep downhill turn. So it wasn't prevalent then. Now, they can't run zone. Bullshit. Then it's your fault for not being able to teach them on what they need to do. That was a BS statement now.
Yeah, you are correct, because their last games have been lost South Carolina, win over New Mexico State, lost to Auburn, lost Texas.
Same Texas A&M.
Well, okay, here's my argument though.
Did you hear me?
I heard you.
New year, same Texas A&M.
What I was trying to say though is my counter argument to that though is the most challenging receiver matchup that they saw was against, actually, it wasn't against USC. The most challenging passing matchup that they saw was USC.
Was against Texas.
Yeah, I don't truly completely fault him for bringing that up, though. I mean, if he's trying to call a scheme and he doesn't have the guys for it.
Hold on 1 second. If that's BS from you, because Marcus Freeman, when he literally came out and said we didn't know how to do certain things, you blamed him. Bro, Joe,
when did he come out and say that? What specific instance are you referencing?
We were talking about how you were mad that he's not yelling at guys on the sidelines, and then in his post game he's saying we didn't execute.
Yeah, but that's specifically on him. That is on him, not motivating guys.
You're in game 13.
Oh, come on,
Joe. Wait. He's got the same damn secondary. You're in game 13. What do you mean you don't know what to do? That's also no. He threw them under the bus.
I don't consider that throwing them under the bus. I mean, if he doesn't have the guys that can play, he didn't name names and do the crap. He didn't do what Hugh Freeze did, where he
had a brand new secondary. He brought all those guys in from the portal. So then it's on him if they didn't know what to do.
It's not like what Hugh Freeze did, where he basically said that none of the quarterbacks on the roster can play well enough, and the reason why they can't win is because the quarterbacks. His statement's not wrong. I don't think he's not at fault.
What's the difference between Elko doing it and Hugh Freeze doing it? Because you didn't like when Freeze did it either.
Because he was really directly he also did it in the middle of a season. Him doing it at the end of the year is non-consequential.
Okay, hold on. Here's a death blow. You ready? We got a photo of him at the bar with a Corona and playing poker. I don't want to hear that everybody was taking this shit seriously now.
He was playing blackjack, I think. I don't think it was poker.
Why are you fighting over semantics?
Because we'll get ready for a long offseason. What do you mean? Why am I fighting over semantics? That's what we do every offseason.
Very true. Sam Mapimba is somebody else I'm watching. They did get Haynes from Colorado. They went and got 2 edge rushers as well. Going to be interesting to see how they look defensively. Some of those guys going to be out. Joe, any concern that USC was able to run the ball on them a little bit? I mean, you're talking about a team, in all fairness, you're talking about a team in USC that is very depleted. We went into the game thinking that they couldn't run the ball.
Well, I know that Scourton didn't play, but if also I'm correct, Shamar Turner also didn't play. Like, they were down.
Three USC offensive linemen hit the portal.
Yeah, but like
starters. Both
they were equally depleted.
Top 2 running backs were not there.
Also, wait, hold on a second. 105 rushing yards isn't running all over them, though.
Joe, they had 3 starting new offensive linemen. Both of their top running backs were out. The simple fact they cracked
I think you're being a little nitpicky here.
Okay. Well,
105 rushing yards?
Well, all I know is when USC lined up for 3rd and 3, they were able to push Texas A&M around to get a first down and win the football game. That's what I know.
I'm not like what I was saying in reference to that is like I'm not truly surprised that situations like that would happen.
Homers.
I'm not an Elko homer. They were without
because he was your DC.
That has nothing to do with it. They were without their best run defending defensive lineman. Like what if first round picks? Possible
USC was out their best couple of receivers. I mean, no one was more depleted in that game than USC was. No one.
You're right. Credit to USC for playing as well as they did.
I know. Spare me. All right. Want to finally get to some picks here. Talk some actual football. All right, here we go. So it is the second round of the playoffs here, Joe. We've been doing picks every single week. And here we have it. Oh, look at this great lead that we've been able to amass here.
Yeah. It's only 9. You said 12 earlier. It's only 9.
Okay, well, you can't catch up. There's nothing you can do. So I'm 114-38. Joe is 105-48. Let's talk about some of these games here. Joe, we will be able to do a reaction video to this on New Year's Day. But Penn State versus Boise State, your thoughts as both of us are taking the Penn State Nittany Lions to win this football game.
I messed up the graphic. You're supposed to be 1-14 and 39, not 38. So I gave you a little bit of a friendly bit there. My biggest thing with this game, Ashton Jetty's going to have a big performance. He is going to rush for over 150 yards. He has been the biggest reason for their success. That's like not a hot take. That's not a surprising one. He has kept them this far and carried them this far in their season. Where they're not going to be able to live is on third down situations, 3rd and 5 or longer. Abdul Carter and that defensive line for Penn State are going to get home. They're going to. Maddox Madsen is not nearly as elusive as Kevin Jennings. It's not even close. Kevin Jennings was one of the best improvising quarterbacks in the country this year. Maddox Madsen's not the same level of athlete. He's not going to be able to get away in those circumstances. Will he make some plays? Yes, of course he will. But I do not see enough for them through the air. And more importantly, their secondary is very weak. In a controlled environment indoors, there should be an easier time for Drew Aller, unlike the way that he played in the beginning of the game against SMU. They're going to have bigger plays through the air. They're going to be able to move the ball more. There is no reason that Boise State should win this game. Penn State, if they play to their potential, has this thing in the bag.
I look at Penn State and I say to myself, if you come out the way that you did against SMU offensively, you're going to keep Boise State around, and eventually they're going to break a long run on you. Don't play around with them.
No.
Do not. They're going to have to come out better offensively than what they did against SMU. I know that weather's going to be a different factor here, so that may change. But I look at Boise, Joe, outside of Ashton Jeanty, they are bad in a lot of areas. That is just the truth. And I look at Penn State and say, unless they come out here and they play sluggish the way they did against SMU, talent be talent, they should be able to control this game from the opening kickoff to the ending kneel down or whatever it may be. But the bottom line here is you've got two really favorable, I'm going to say it like that, matchups to start it off. You lead them in every statistical category besides rushing offense. Literally, clearly. There's nothing on paper, talent v. talent, and quite honestly, coaching staff, why you should allow them to stay around with you. But I'm going to tell you, I've seen you be sluggish. Can you continue to get over the hump? I will remind people, it's the best James Franklin stat of all. 95% of the time, he's going to beat teams not named Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon. Just going to happen that way. So I do think that they're going to take charge, though. I do think Drew Aller and Andy Kotelnicki will be able to figure some things out. I do think they're able to control the game, but they better not stay around and let them and play around with them. All right, Joe, Notre Dame and Georgia, the only games that you and I differ here throughout this. You're going with the Fighting Irish. I'm going with the Georgia Bulldogs. Let's go ahead and debate this one.
I'm obviously not going to pick against my team. I've been on both sides of the fence on how I want to handle picking this because I don't know if I want to jinx Notre Dame or not. Yes, I am that superstitious, but there's a path and a way for Notre Dame to win this game. I do not believe that this is a circumstance where we can just sit here and say Notre Dame's effed. There's no shot that they're going to win it. Their defense, their secondary is built for this matchup. Going up against an inexperienced quarterback with corners who play great tight man coverage with receivers that have a lot of issues with hanging on to the football. If they can get the right disruptions at the catch point on third down, if they could get a turnover from Xavier Watts or Don Schuler, that is what they need to win this game by getting a short field and converting in a big play from Jeremiah Love or Jadarian Price. They don't need to be perfect. They don't need to play a game where they throw for 300 yards and run for 150 and play against their style. They just have to be. Come on, don't shake your head at that. They just have to play and lean on their defense to win a ball game like this. There's a shot that they don't. There's a shot that they don't. But their defense is good enough to go toe-to-toe with a team like Georgia.
Crow's coming home to roost. I completely disagree with you on how this game's going to go.
Oh, come on.
Completely. Because I think Riley Leonard's got to do that. I'm not saying throw for 300 yards, but what I'm saying is, Joe, he's going to have to be in very critical situations and throw the football. The number doesn't matter to me. If you know how a game can feel, and if there's a lot of big situations, stats don't mean shit. If he's throwing the ball and completing passes on third downs, it's going to feel like he takes over the game. That's what Notre Dame's got to do to win this football game in a story. Because I'm going to tell you one thing. I've seen this story before. Everybody has seen this story before with Georgia. Quarterback down. Here comes a backup. Walk on or not. Defense starts stepping up. I'm telling you right now, Kirby said something today that was the most interesting thing that I've heard him say probably ever. He says our team, what we talked about last week, the team has rallied around him, and we've been practicing better than we've ever practiced. What does that mean from a guy like that? That I'm telling you, they are going to load the – I'm not saying Jeremiah Love can't run.
Obviously that they're going to, and I don't disagree with this premise. But
if Notre Dame is going to win this football game, it is going to come off the arm of Riley Leonard. I promise you.
I don't disagree with that.
The times what have we seen about the times that Georgia is either going down this season or they've gone down in seasons before? If you want to talk about the SEC championship game last year or the Alabama game this year, it wasn't Jalen Milroe running the football. It's never them running the football. If you're going to beat Georgia, you have to be surgical on third down throwing the football. That is their weakness.
So, surgical is like an aggressive way of phrasing this. Haynes King wasn't surgical, and they almost won that game.
In the game-winning touchdown.
Well, you're making it – surgical is an extreme word, and it makes me feel like he's got to hit like some really tight, crazy passing windows and make some crazy big play. He just needs to be good enough.
You go right on ahead and think that he doesn't, because I promise you this. If he doesn't, you're going to get your asses beat.
He needs to do exactly what Haynes King did.
You go right on ahead and think that that's going to happen. You go right on ahead.
He's as good of an athlete as Haynes King is. It's not some insane take to have. It's on film. It's on film.
Brother, you've given this man over a month to game plan against you.
You also put on film a bad game against the Georgia Tech team that's not very good. It is such an easy game plan to steal. They can replicate and do exactly what Georgia Tech did.
Okay. Y'all, listen to me, and listen to me good. I've been listening to y'all say this all year. Do this, 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 and this. You cannot do that against them and win this football game. I promise you.
You can't do what? No, elaborate. You can't do what?
If you're going to play bully ball with Georgia, you're going to get your asses whooped.
I didn't say they're not going to try to play bully ball with them.
Joe, you're saying that you need to line up and run the football and take control. And I promise you this.
It doesn't come out of my mouth. I didn't say that. Joe, Georgia Tech didn't do that.
That's exactly what they did.
Oh, Georgia Tech got the ball to anybody that could do in space.
What do you mean?
No. They were doing everything that they could in order to get the ball to Jamal Haynes, in order to get the ball in the hands of Haynes King as a runner. That's what they need to do.
He ran the ball for close to 30 times. What are you talking about?
I'm saying that they didn't run the ball right up the middle every single play. And I'm not saying that they're going to do that. They don't need to do that.
What was Haynes King doing? How was he running the football? They were running QB power. There's nothing else you can do on QB power. It's the number one play that you put in your playbook. What are you talking about?
Running outside. It's not but like an A-gap run. You're making it seem like
an A-gap run.
No, it's not. Power is not just purely no, come on. You're out of your mind. No, stop it. Stop. You're trying to make this argument as if that they need to. I'm implying that they need to just line up two tight ends and just run down the middle. That's not what I'm saying. You're trying
Okay. Then you're gonna have to explain to me then what you mean by playing your style of football, because that's the style.
How did they score the 98-yard touchdown with Jeremiah Love? It was an outside run. It was an outside run. Get the ball to the outside. I'm just trying to be clear here that
you think that y'all got more speed than Georgia.
I think you're underestimating. I'm not saying that we got more speed than Georgia, but I think you're underestimating how fast Jeremiah Love is.
No, I'm not. That kid's special. I'm not talking about him.
I just don't like my whole problem with this play is I don't like this implication that Riley Leonard needs to go out there and play like a perfect football game as a passer. That's not their game.
And they're going to put you in critical third down situations. And if you cannot throw the football on them and convert those critical situations and you continue to punt the ball away, they will beat your ass. That is Georgia 101.
So Riley Leonard can't scramble? He can't do any of that?
He certainly can. But do you really? Okay.
I can't wait for this game, man. I can't wait for this game.
Hey, I'm going to come in here. Well, listen, I'm not even going to say a word when it happens. You're going to go in there and play bully ball with Georgia. You're going to get your ass
I'm not saying bully ball. That's not the implication. It's running the football doesn't just mean bully ball. Running the football is a far broader.
You said per your statement, still the Georgia Tech game plan. Did you not?
But Georgia Tech didn't just say we're gonna go under. When you say bully ball, it makes me think under center. We're gonna run the ball only between the tackles.
No, I call.
They didn't. They were creative in getting the ball in space to guys. That to me is what Georgia Tech did, and they had the athletes, and that's when you run the ball. That's what you need to do. Run a trick play. Run reverses. Run screens. Like that's what I'm talking about.
Okay. In fairness, when you bring it up. I'm looking at a team that ran for 260 yards. When I look at their rushing attempts, Joe, 24 from Haynes King. Jamal Haynes had 13. Alexander had 5. Singleton had 3. The receiver had 3. Joe, they had receivers with rushing yards.
Well, wait. But that's what I'm talking about here. You're nitpicking me using the word bully ball, and I'm not I didn't say bully ball. Getting the ball to your receivers as rushers is what I'm talking about.
But there's something massive about that game that you're leaving out. Haynes King, 26 of 36 for 303 and 2 touchdowns. If Riley Leonard, the reason that game is close is because Haynes King is throwing the ball on critical downs and converting.
If UMass can run on you, I think that Notre Dame will be fine.
You fucking lost to NIU. You might want to calm down.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not. Okay. All right. We got 2 more before we wrap up the show.
Well, this next one, Arizona State and Texas, we're both going with Texas.
Arizona State does not have the pass rush production to get the Quinn Ewers. Plain and simple. Texas's best football games have come when he has been relaxed and the pressure's not on his shoulders. We've even talked about where they have had really good production from their running backs, and he hasn't had to do everything. And he's played not his best ball in a couple of instances, but regardless, when he doesn't have to throw the ball 35 plus times, that's how they win. I think they're going to be fine running the ball. I think that they're going to be fine with him in the pocket, having time to operate. Cam Scadaboo is not going to be enough against that D line. It's just not. Sorry, Arizona State fans, Texas winning the game.
I think Arizona State's going to find a way to cover.
Well, it's a big line. It's 14.
I thought it was 17. Is it 14?
I think it's 12 and a half, maybe.
Okay. Well, I thought it was 17. I'm not going to go that far. Ding, 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 ding. Splattering alert.
It's going to be a blowout. Let's see what this line is. Let me double check. BetOnline has it at 13.
Okay. If it was any more than 14, I'm taking Arizona State to cover because Texas will play to a level of their opponent every single week. They completely do that every single week. All right, last one here, Joe. Oregon versus Ohio State. Both of us going with the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I keep coming back to the fact that it feels like the Michigan loss was a rallying point. Ohio State played the most intense football game that I have watched all year long out of any team's film that I've broken down. That level of focus is not something that just goes away. They're not acting and talking and playing like a team that is just content with the fact that they dominated Tennessee. No, they're on a death. They are on a aggressive downhill roll towards trying to get to a national championship. And I think that Tennessee game was the momentum that they needed after the Michigan loss. Oregon beating them the first time might have gone the opposite direction for them because Ohio State has had time to prepare to figure out how they can get them again.
Can Ohio State translate the intensity that they had through all 4 quarters and translate it into a game with Oregon? Here's the thing that I feel like that I'm seeing. I'm seeing an entire team rally behind a quarterback. Every Ohio State player post that I am seeing is about one person. That person's being Will Howard. I don't care if he's going to ever play it down in the NFL. I don't care. I know what something special happens, what it looks like when a team rallies behind one guy. I'm going to continue to say this. I don't think that they're remotely close to touching their ceiling offensively, even with the injuries. They are special, very special out wide. And if he can make really good throws, they're going to win this football game. Here's the thing that made me ultimately choose Ohio State. Oregon's run defense has been bad. And if you give them any room to run the football with a beat-up O-line, you will be in trouble because they will go play action on your ass and they'll start hitting Jeremiah Smith long. That's the thing for me that changed my opinion. I was leaning Oregon earlier in the week, just could not go ahead and pull that trigger. I'm going to take Ohio State here, Joe.
Yeah. Well, this is the one that has the biggest momentum for whoever wins it to go on and win the national title. Because if you can build the confidence of the victory, if you're Oregon or Ohio State, it is enough to get past Texas, certainly, and it is enough to get past whoever you're meeting in the national championship game.
I fully agree with that. And listen, if they do beat Oregon and they go on a run where they beat Tennessee, Oregon, and hypothetically, let's say Texas, and then you're talking about them winning a national title, let's say it's Notre Dame, Penn State, Georgia, whoever it is, it doesn't matter. The run in the season that they had to finish this stretch will be one of the most impressive runs that we've seen in college football's history.
Absolutely.
I mean, like, you're talking about 4 straight top 10 opponents. 4. Now, nobody's ever done that before. No one has ever beat 4 straight top 10 opponents. That is what's going to be very interesting here, Joe, if we get to that point. All right. That will be nuts. It will be nuts.
Yeah.
It's never happened.
So the playoffs for, man.
Whew. You talk about a Giants playoff run with Eli Manning. That's what you start talking about here. All right, we'll see y'all again soon. Y'all have a great new Joe, I won't see you next year, buddy.
All right, I'll talk to you next year.
All right, talk to you next year. We'll see y'all soon. You have a good one. Peace.